Okay, today's Q&A is about Kitnios, about a very specific question, and that is like this. The person says, we're heading to our daughter in Eretz Yisrael for Pesach, and she says that where they live, they're not going to have cottonseed oil and they're not going to have quinoa because both of those are considered Kitnios. And that was really surprising to us because where we live, those are both staples. I mean, that's the oil we use is cottonseed oil, and quinoa we eat all the time on Pesach. So how could it be that we eat it all the time on Pesach and they think that it's Kitnios? So the answer is as follows. We've got to step back a little bit and understand a little bit about the minhag itself. So the minhag, everybody basically agrees that the minhag includes not eating rice, beans, peas, sesame seeds, corn, and mustard. Those are all included in the minhag. But there's quite a debate about a number of other things, including quinoa and amaranth and guar gum and certain oils like cottonseed and safflower and flaxseed oil, and a little bit about peanuts and string beans. And there's a little question about it. I'm going to try to explain what the question is about those things. Okay, just for purposes of what we're going to talk today, we're going to assume that if an item is Kitnios, the oil that comes from it is also Kitnios, which is pretty well accepted by the poskim. So the difference of opinion has to be like this. There was a big debate whether this minhag of Kitnios should have started in the first place. When it was starting, there were many who disagreed and thought it was not a good idea. In the end, Ashkenazim did follow this minhag, but the Chok Yaakov says that it was enough that we accepted the minhag for what it was. We don't add new things onto that minhag. And an example of that, or his proof to that, is that Taz and the Magen Avraham have raise a whole concern about anise, which is a kind of a spice, anise having grains mixed into it, and that really those things should be included in what would be Kitnios. We would consider them to be, they have the concern of having chametz mixed in, which would why it should be usher. But the Rama specifically says that anise is not Kitnios. So the Chok Yaakov says that makes the point that if we have something that logically should have been included in the minhag, but it wasn't when the initial time when the minhag started up, it was not included, then we don't add it on afterwards. Okay, so it's sort of a close the door. Whatever was included, and we don't add on new things. And the same type of a sheet that was brought out in Divrei Yatziv and in Igros Moshe, who was speaking about cottonseed oil and peanuts. And they said, listen, 600 years ago when this whole minhag started, cotton seeds were not considered edible, peanuts were not yet available in Europe, and since they weren't there in the original minhag, they stay mutter, even though they would qualify, so to speak, as being Kitnios. And the same thing is for quinoa and amaranth and chia seeds and guar gum and other foods like that. They were not around in Europe when the Yidden were starting this minhag, and therefore they stay mutter. So just as a little side note is that some people may know that what we call canola oil first showed up in the American market in the 1980s, but it's actually not a new item. It's not new at all. It's what used to be called rapeseed oil. It's been modified to take out the uricic acid. It's been used for hundreds of years in Europe. The Avnei Nezer and the Marsham both say that it is Kitnios. That is when they use the term, the rapeseed oil term, and therefore we assume the Kitnios. Anyhow, so what I just said about not adding new items onto the minhag is what many American poskim follow that shita. On the other hand, a lot of poskim in Eretz Yisrael follow what Rabbi Yasha said, who did not accept everything that I just said until now. They say, look at corn and soy and peanuts that everybody considers them to be Kitnios, even though those were all not available. So obviously, we can include things in the minhag even if they were not around at the time when the minhag started. There are criteria to decide what is or is not Kitnios, and if it meets the criteria, it's Kitnios, whether it was around at the beginning or not. Okay, so what are the other people who respond back to that is that l'maisa is a minhag is a custom. It's what people do. So if people will choose to start eating certain new items like corn and soy, if people choose to, then that's fine. Even if a minhag doesn't have to follow the technical rule, so to speak. So the technical rule I just mentioned was we don't add new things to it. But that doesn't mean there can't be an exception because again, it's a minhag. It's what people do. If people do it, then they do it, and therefore. So people have chosen to include corn and soy and peanuts into this, so to speak, minhag that doesn't have any space anymore, any room for new things. But quinoa and cottonseed oil, people are very happy to have. So that sort of explains why in some places, like in many communities in the United States, they'll eat cottonseed oil, and quinoa and many of these other foods, and if so, they wouldn't. And every person should speak to their Rav for direction on exactly the right way for them to do.